Hello and welcome to the channel. Today I want to give you guys a detailed explanation of the Exway app. Let's get into it. As I alluded to, today we're going to discuss the Exway app. And one of the first things that people do when they actually get their Exway boards is actually customize the app to meet their riding needs. So that's what we're going to discuss today. So the first thing that you need to do is actually download the Exway app. And oftentimes when you buy your board, they're going to have a QR code that you can scan and you can download the app from the App Store on your phone, whether you're iOS or Android user. And from that point, the next thing that you need to do is actually turn your board and your remote on. And when you do that, make sure that your remote and your board are in close proximity, and then go ahead and open up the Exway app. Now, when you open up the Exway app, it's not going to automatically recognize your board. You're going to actually have to connect to devices. And when you click on that, it's going to list a number of different Bluetooth devices that are nearby. And I'm going to go ahead and click on the Flex because I want to work on my Exway Flex. And as you can see, it's going to say connecting to device, and it may take a couple of seconds. And when it actually opens up, you're going to see a lot of stuff at the very top. So the first thing I want to discuss is the ID code. And because I have several Exway boards, I actually like to change the names of the boards so that I can recognize them when it opens up the Bluetooth. So when you click on that, you can actually change the name. So I actually named this one, of course, the Flex because I'm talking about my Exway Flex. So you can change the name to whatever you want. Your name, Jonathan's Flex, or whatever the case may be. So you can change that. So that's the very first thing. So then the next thing that you'll see within the app is actually something called safe mode. And what safe mode is basically a setting that if you are an inexperienced rider, Exway's app will not allow your board to go to a specific speed until you put on a certain amount of miles or kilometers on the board. So if you are not an experienced rider, you may want to leave it that way. However, if you are an experienced rider and you've had many electric skateboards, you might want to take off the safe mode because you want to be able to access the highest speeds on the board, mode 3 and 4 and things like that. So you can turn that on and off by just clicking on it. It's really simple. So then the next thing that you'll see there is called standby mode, and I love standby mode. And what standby mode does is it allows you to turn your board on and off by just clicking on the remote. Now, you know, a lot of other boards, in order to turn on the board, you have to actually bend over, turn on the board, then also turn on the remote. The cool thing about Exway is that they have standby mode. And as you can see, you get to choose from different time frames that you want standby to work. I actually leave mine on 2 hours because I don't want to drain my battery too long. But as you can see, you can leave it on 7 days. So whenever you want to utilize your board, you just turn on the remote, she's ready to go. You don't ever have to bend over, turn the board on or anything like that. So that's a pretty solid feature right there. And you just can turn it on and off. And then you can decide if you want 1 day, 2 days, 7 days, whatever the case may be. So that's pretty cool as well. The next thing that you'll see is change gears while moving. And I like to turn that on because let's say if I want to go from mode 3 to 4 or mode 2 to 1 or whatever while I'm moving, I can do that with that toggled on. Otherwise, you'd have to make a complete stop. And this is important to me because oftentimes if I'm in group rides or things like that, I may want to quickly go back and forth in my gears, and I don't want to have to actually make a complete stop so I can change the gears when I'm moving. So I like to just leave that on. And then the next thing is free mode. Y'all know, if you've been watching the channel, I love my free mode. And what free mode is basically when you pull back on the throttle, instead of the board just braking, it actually goes in reverse. It's similar to what you see on the boosted boards. And I love that because it allows you to have incredible braking strength, and you're actually able to stop on declines, as well as if you're stopping and you overshoot where you want to stop, you can actually just roll back without actually having to put the board in reverse. So I really like that, and you have ridiculous amount of control with your braking strength when you leave free mode on. Now, it's going to take you a while to get used to free mode if you've never used it. To be honest about it, I did not use it for quite a while because I was so accustomed to just pulling back on the throttle and braking. And it takes a while because sometimes if you're doing an emergency brake, you may forget to, after you stop, to take your finger off of the reverse, because then the board will continue to go back in reverse. So it takes some practice and some skill. And what I would do is recommend, if you're using free mode, try to practice with it in a safe environment before you use it in a group ride or riding in the streets or anything like that. So you could toggle that on and off. The next thing that you'll see is actually cruise control, and I don't have mine on. I rarely ever use cruise control, and basically with cruise control, it allows you to set your speed and actually don't even need to throttle forward. The board will just keep going at the same speed that you set it at. Now there's a limit. You can't do the top speed in cruise control. I think there's a limit. I don't know the actual amount. I'll find it. I'll put it somewhere on the screen. But that's a cool feature if you're like on a long trail or something like that, and you just want to chill out and let your board ride without actually having to worry about braking and stuff. Now the cool thing about cruise control is that when you're ready to deactivate it, all you have to do is accelerate or brake and it turns off, and then you're able to control your board again with your remote. So that's a really cool feature as well. Next thing that you'll see is the turbo, and basically when you enable turbo, it increases like the acceleration and things like that. It doesn't increase the top speed, but it increases the actual acceleration to get to the top speed, and that's pretty cool. I actually leave turbo on because that's just how I like to roll. But what you'll notice is that with turbo turned on, it's gonna utilize more battery. But most people that I know that have Exway boards, we just leave the turbo on and we make it do what it do. So that's a really cool feature as well. You can turn that on. This is different than the X1. With the X1, the turbo allows you to actually break the speed limit that Exway set. But with the Exway Flex and Turbo, it actually just increases your speed so that you get to your top speed quicker. It doesn't actually increase your top speed, if that makes sense. And then as you scroll down, you'll see something else called wheel size. And this is because, let's say you purchase different wheels for your board, you can actually tell the app what size wheels you're actually using on your board so that the speedometer and things like that are accurate. Now, if you look on mine, they only have 85, 83, and 80 millimeters. I'm pretty sure that Exway is going to update the app because they're coming out with the cloud wheels, and the cloud wheels are much larger. So you'll be able to do that. So that's pretty solid as well. And then as you continue to scroll down, you'll see the power system mode. And this allows you to select whether you're using the ride system or the hub motor system. And that's because Exway allows you to choose, do you want hubs or do you want the belt system? So of course you would select the appropriate system based on what you actually have on your board. And then if you wanted to switch out your drivetrain, when you do that, you need to go into the app and adjust it. And I have my video on the Exway hub video. I explain all of that in more detail. And then as you continue to go down, you'll see the advanced mode. And this is where you can, when you click on that, you can change different things. So then they have some standardized settings: custom, beginner, default, and race. And when you put it on beginner, as you see, the acceleration curves are very conservative. And then that may be great for somebody who's new to riding. It also might be great, let's say if you let somebody borrow your board or you're trying to teach them how to ride, you might want to put it on beginner mode so that the acceleration is low for them. And then they have something called default, which is the acceleration curves are a little bit higher, but they're not too aggressive. But then you can go all the way up to race mode, and as you can see, the acceleration curves increase dramatically. But to be honest about it, I actually just adjust mine and I put my third and fourth mode all the way up to 100%. That's just how I roll, so that my acceleration in mode 3 and 4 is the fastest that it can be when riding the board. You as a rider have to decide what's best for you. If you're out riding and you want to get more range, you might want to take it down a little bit. If you're trying to teach somebody or you're letting your child ride your board, you might want to knock it down. So really solid when you talk about the acceleration curves. And then as you go down some more, you'll see what's called the braking curves. And then this determines how aggressive your brakes are. So some people, if they're new, they may want to turn everything down or whatever the case may be. But to be honest about it, when I'm riding in modes 3 and 4, I like to have my brake curves on 100% so they have maximum power, so that if I'm riding in group rides or whatever the case may be, I can stop on a dime like I need to. But then I like to leave my first and second gears at 50% because the only times I ever use modes 1 and 2 is if I'm letting somebody borrow my board, and I wouldn't necessarily want the braking curve to be the highest because they're new and they're novice. So that's pretty cool as well. And then at the bottom they have the firmware upgrade. I'm not going to click on that because Exway was saying don't upgrade your firmware just yet. But let's just say when Exway comes out with a new firmware update, you would click on that and you can update it. So for example, when it's time for the cloud wheels to come out with Exway, I'm sure they're going to send out that firmware update, and you'll be able to select 105mm wheels, 120mm wheels, whatever the case may be. Let me touch on a couple of other things. If you click over here at top, you also see your odometer and things like that, and then they also have your reduced C, your reduced emissions, and it tells you how much emissions that you've actually reduced by using the board. And then if you come over to your dash section, it's connecting to the Bluetooth. When you come over there, you're going to see some other cool functionality as well. So it'll tell you how much distance you have left based on your charge. It'll tell you the temperature of the battery, the temperature of the ESC, and then you can actually look at this while you're actually riding your board. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could if you wanted to look at how things are going in your power output. So this is pretty cool here. Exway gives you a lot of cool information within the app. And then if you want to click over to tutorial, they have some information in there, the quick start guide, you know, skateboard direction, foot positioning, stance, how to step on the board, turning, stepping off, braking and acceleration, unlocking the speed mode and things like that for safe mode. So a lot of cool little functionality in the app. They also have the user manual here as well. So if you lose your hard copy, then you actually have you know, a digital copy as well, so that you can actually look at the manual if you want to, and just to see how to navigate and work your board. So the manual is pretty solid as well. And then they have facts, questions, and answers. Oh, this is pretty cool. This looks new. Is it okay to bring my Exway X1 on the plane? Is the X1 waterproof? What is the warranty? Does the battery, can it be replaced? All of these questions. But it seems like a lot of these things are geared toward the app that was also used with the X1. So I can't wait to be able to update my app so I can see some of the functionality as it relates to the Exway Flex board. So I hope that this was helpful to you guys. If you like what you heard, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And as always, I'll see you at the top because the bottom is too crowded. Peace.